Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Dr. Todd Talks Tunes show. I am your host, Dr. Todd Samra, and today we have a great episode. We are focusing on two pieces of music today, a direct comparison of a classical piece of music to a great classic rock and roll piece of music. So we're going to focus today on Short Ride in a Fast Machine by the composer John Adams, born in 1947, American composer, and compare that to Red Barchetta, or Red Barchetta, depending on what part of the country you grew up in, by the rock band Rush from 1981 from their classic album, Moving Pictures. So we're going to start today by talking about Red Barchetta. I grew up calling it Red Barchetta, but technically a CH in Italian would be a K sound, so it is actually called a Red Barchetta, and it's a Ferrari. It's a car known as a Ferrari 166, and there is something called a Ferrari 166S, and there were only 12 of those cars made. 12. Period. And they came with a V12 and a 5-speed manual transmission, and they were quite the machine. Rush developed this song as a story about this dystopian future where cars are outlawed beyond the motor law. And so his uncle kept a Red Barchetta in his barn. And so one Sunday afternoon, Geddy Lee, or whoever's writing, I think Neil Peart actually wrote a lot of the words to that. So whoever the person is in the story, whatever member of Rush or all three, there's not room for all. There's only two-seater. Can't fit all of the band in the car at the same time. So whoever it is, they're dashing through the countryside in this incredible sports car. So, I mean, Rush is a fantastic band. They formed in the three-man band that we would know them famously in 1974. And of course, this album, Moving Pictures, comes from 1981. And it's a classic album. It's just one of the greatest albums of all time. And I really kind of wanted to do a whole episode devoted to that album. But as I was exploring it and researching it, and I really gravitated towards this song. This is one of my workout songs. And of course, I always compare it in my mind to the John Adams Short Ride in a Fast Machine. And I thought, we can't cover this whole album in one episode anyway. So why not just break it down and just look at one of the greatest songs from that album and compare it to this great classical piece of music. So Rush's Red Barchetta, and I played just a short little bit of that at the beginning, but I want to go back and play a little bit more towards the beginning of the song just to give you a flavor for how it starts. It's almost pastoral, a lot of harmonics. So it starts out kind of, nice and easy. They're just going to tell a story. So the song isn't really very pictorial yet. They haven't really got to the moving and the racing of the car. And that's kind of where we were when we started the episode today, that we've got very mechanical. Bum, 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 bum. Mechanical music. And I think that's a really good phrase to describe really what's going on. So the music itself, the choice of notes, the choice of rhythms, the polyrhythms, the energy of it is all kind of related to the experience of riding in this fantastic Ferrari. I mean, if you've ever been to a racetrack and heard the Ferraris go by, man, they're really something else. They really scream. So the use of the electric guitar, and it's all very appropriate for really telling the story of this experience in this car. Well, John Adams, the composer, American composer, born 1947, as I mentioned earlier, also does something very similar, but more, it's instrumental. It isn't. It doesn't have any words. There aren't anything to tell the story. The music itself tells his story. Now, a real quick note about John Adams. He's a fantastic composer, and I really think he's one of the greatest living orchestral composers alive today. My introduction to John Adams came years ago when I got to see a production of his opera Nixon in China at Indiana University. And I was way in the back, but I was very impressed by this production. First of all, they had part of a replica of an airplane on the stage. It was life-size. There's another opera, and they did it in Chicago some years ago, and it's called Dr. Atomic, and it's of course about Oppenheimer and the creation of the bomb, which I think is a very interesting premise for a modern opera. So John Adams, he's really kind of on this interesting path in creating music that represents the zeitgeist of today. I believe he is still the composer in residence with the LA Phil. What a great place to be, down there with Dudamel. A lot of, well, once again, it's not really going on right now because of COVID, but what a great place to be. So he's really a composer that's on the forefront of classical music today. And that warrants him getting some attention, I believe. So let's just take a little bit of a listen to the beginning of The Short Ride in a Fast Machine. And you're going to hear this wood block, and then you're going to hear the trumpets come in. He immediately starts off with these polyrhythms. Here we go. So that beginning right there, he starts out just kind of simply, just like you got the car started, and then the car starts to warm up and the pistons start to move around. And so the rhythms of the car become much more complex. Very exciting. Very exciting. And I think as we go into the piece a little bit, you know, some of that energy is very real. So a lot of that same kind of energy that we really have in Red Barchetta, the energy of the car we have here. But he's achieving it by using all of these different polyrhythms, all of these different meanings. There's multiple rhythmic sets or subdivisions going on at the same time. So he's using these to create a sense of conflict between these meters that are happening simultaneously. And as they spin out, I mean, do you ever listen to two crickets and how they go in sync, and then they slightly go out of phase, and then they become actually totally opposite of one another, and then they phase back in, and you get these, you know, two crickets. They're in their own independent rhythm, but there's a relationship between those two rhythms. And that's kind of what's going on here in this piece. So let's go to the next section. Low rumbles, it's steady. So I really wish we could play a lot more of it, you know, and in a regular classroom situation, we would actually give it a full listen, because this piece is less than 4.5 minutes long. So it's a great opener to like the beginning of a concert. Instead of doing maybe a traditional overture, you know, instead of doing Egmont by Beethoven or an overture by Wagner or something, you can do this to open up a concert. It's a great, energizing, powerful opening. It was premiered originally by the Pittsburgh Orchestra, and I believe it was 1986. It's interesting that this piece came out only about 5 years after the Rush album came out. Did he know the Rush piece? Well, I don't really think it matters whether he knew the Rush piece or not. He's obviously not copying musically anything going on in there. There's no text here. You know, I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past John Adams to have listened to Rush and to have been familiar with that music. Very often his music is considered to be minimalist. So sometimes he's kind of looked at in the same vein as Reich and Glass. He kind of has that reputation and style and being part of that genre and that school of thought. So that's also part of the reason why we have these short cells of musical information. And that really is related to kind of some of the same things that Glass would do in his own compositions. So, you know, check out Einstein on the Beach, check out Koyaanisqatsi if you want to hear some Glass and kind of get a feeling for his brand of minimalism, and then compare that here with John Adams and really his brand of minimalism, which is different and very unique. So he's a great composer. I think there's no question that Rush is you know, one of the greatest rock bands of all time. I consider him to be a hard rock band. Some people consider him to be a more progressive rock band. But they wrote very sophisticated music, a lot of things rhythmically, and that's just not Neil Peart and the drums. I mean, that's Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee, also composing songs in mixed meter and asymmetrical meters, and even exploring all the different options and opportunities available just in a straight 4/4 meter. I mean, Rush. Rhythm and meter are a very, very important element in their music. Well, that's also true of John Adams. And so I think it's really great that we have, music can just simply exist for the sake of music. It doesn't need to represent or depict anything. But I think it's cool when pieces of music do depict these things and depict them so well, connected to the emotion, to the sounds, and it's almost like you can smell the engine. The music is grabs a hold of you so powerfully in both instances, in both these pieces of music. It grabs a hold of you so powerfully that you can almost like smell the experience of being in this car. Coming up, we have a couple of other great episodes coming up. I'm very much looking forward to next week when we're going to talk about Alan Parsons and the Alan Parsons Project and the Tales of Mystery and Imagination. After that, we're going to have an episode called Almost Famous, where we do a profile of 4 people who maybe were famous when they were alive. And then, of course, I'm very much looking forward to episode number 24 when we have Composer Deathmatch number 2. And it's going to be Paul McCartney versus Brian Wilson. Can't wait to do that episode, actually. Very excited for that. So, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. Please leave some comments below, not only about maybe what you think of this program, but what you think maybe your favorite Rush tune is, what your favorite Rush album is, what your favorite John Adams opera is, any of those things. Please feel free to leave comments below. Please subscribe to our channel. We're almost to 200 subscribers. We're so excited. So thank you for your support, and we look forward to having you back again next time. Thank you for watching Dr. Todd Talks Tunes.